Day. It's another great day in the week and a lot to talk about, man. We have got Jake Wimberly, ESPN 105.9, the afternoon drive in Jackson, Mississippi. Catch him 3 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Going to be on talking some Mississippi State, some Ole Miss. Want to get into the new CFP 12-team format, Brendan. Big news came out yesterday. Dudley Dawson, right after that, hogville.net. What's going on up in Fayetteville with the Hogs and Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville. I always love hearing from Vince. And, he's a Tampa native. He goes home to his mom's Mama Ferrara's Italian restaurant. That would sell.
I know he's going to bring us some food. I want to try
a calzone and some stromboli, and I bet she makes a mean spinach. That's what he said that everything she makes is magic. But hey, hang in here, folks. Get with us. We're coming at you. Be right back.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Jake Wimberly's in here in the studio with us right now. Jake, yesterday, a lot of news came out on this college football playoff committee 12-team format. I read through it yesterday, but only the mind of a civil, mechanical, or an aerospace engineer will take it apart like you do, because you do the matrix. You do so much numbers, analytics, number crunching, preseason and all. But now, the new standard, the 4-team playoff, if you made it, that's going to be pretty cool to say you made it. But now there's a 12-team playoff. You better make it, or I think it's going to be a shorter leash on a lot of coaches. But what was your takeaway about what they do with the top 4 teams, the top 5 conference champions, and kind of all that?
Yeah, and hey, it's great to be with you guys today, Brendan and Rob. Yesterday we unpacked this thing for about 3 hours on the show. Had a couple guests on, Chris Landry with Landry Football and some others, some different minds around this thing. And the thing that come to mind, not surprised that Washington State's athletic directors and presidents kind of folded on this. They were kind of the linchpin on this. That was trying to keep it at 6, 6 plus 6, 6 champions, 5 Power Fives and a group of 5, and then 6 others, so it goes 5-7. Not surprised by that. But look, one of the things that people have to realize about this, there's 2 things. One, immediately after that, there was rumblings coming out of the meetings yesterday that there was some concern that the SEC and the Big Ten may try to strong-arm everybody here in the next 2 years and ask for automatic qualifiers and different types of rev share. And I am sure that will probably happen or is already happening. Look, the SEC and the Big Ten didn't get in bed with each other and become bedfellows for any, just no reason. They've got an agenda here. But back to the playoff, we don't know how many teams the SEC is going to get. Obviously, or the Big Ten, it was pretty apparent yesterday that after the champions, it's the next ones up in how you're positioned in the playoff poll. So the playoff poll is extremely important. But then there's some other stuff that I'll be interested to see when the polls start coming out this year. Is, for instance, let's just take Liberty, who finished 23rd or 24th in the poll, 25th, somewhere in the bottom end of it. Well, if they win their conference championship, then they're going to be in. Will the College Football Playoff Committee rank these teams a little differently? Meaning, if you're an undefeated Liberty, now will you move, wink, wink, into the top 12? If you're Notre Dame and you're undefeated, or if you are a 10-2 team, they're going to be in the playoffs. So, how many teams, will they take from each conference? How will they change the way they rank this thing? I think it's fascinating. I think if you're an SEC team, if you're, Georgia, Texas this year, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Missouri, LSU, you 10-2 is kind of your floor. You better be at least 10-2, because other conferences, when you look at the ACC, 2 or 3 teams there, Clemson, Miami, potentially this year, also Florida State. You look at the Big Ten, Oregon, Ohio State, maybe Michigan, Penn State. There's a lot of jockeying. 12 seems like a lot, But once you take the conference champions off the table, there's only so many spots to get. And if Notre Dame goes 10-2, there goes one of your spots as well.
Yeah, because when we talked to Bill Hancock, the chairman who's retiring of the College Football Playoff Committee, it said the 6 highest ranked conference champions, 6 at large. Now it's 5. That is significant. And that is a sign of it's probably going to be 4 the next time they do a revision, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And look, I fully intend this thing to get to at least 16, maybe even a few more teams than that. After, the TV deals are renegotiated after 25 and 26. So, But I mean, here we are with a playoff, and look, the SEC is loaded this year. We know that. I mean, Georgia and Texas, I think right now you have to say, and Vegas says it as well, they're at the top of the leaderboard as far as the SEC before we play. And then, what about the elbow room for Ole Miss or Missouri or Tennessee may have a stake in this thing. LSU's not going anywhere. So for those extra spots that the SEC may get, it's about trying to position yourself inside the top 12 of that playoff poll.
Yeah, and I just think right now you live in Mississippi. It's the baseball capital of the universe, college baseball, and that starts with high school and junior college. But football-wise, you're watching SEC Network this morning before the show. Ole Miss finished, I think, 20th in the country in recruiting for high school. They're number 1 in their portal class. There is so much momentum. Hell, we're trying to book hotel rooms for next Thursday night in Oxford. I'm talking the 29th of February. We're doing the show live from Oxford at the Vitamin Shop. It's new opening, one of our sponsors in Oxford. And the hotel rooms that were like 162 with tax. What's going on in Oxford next weekend? They're talking $450, $950 a night next Thursday and Friday. Is Led Zeppelin getting back together? I mean, seriously? I asked Yancey Porter. He goes, I have no idea. What is going on in Oxford?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the schedules. I mean, it's either going to be a big baseball weekend. I don't know if that's the weekend Ole Miss takes on Iowa in baseball or basketball. But look, there's so much momentum in Oxford right now. It's contagious. And, you look at, obviously baseball, we'll talk a little bit about that. Mississippi State loses to Austin Peay yesterday. It's kind of a flat field for baseball. And I can promise you this, especially both Mississippi State and Ole Miss fans, if these baseball teams fall flat pretty quickly, they're going to enjoy March Madness, and then they're turning their attention to, 2 different storylines. One, Mississippi State with a new head football coach in Jeff Levy and what they can do possibly this year, a different look. And then 2, Rob, it, you're just right here outside of it, but kind of inside of it. The momentum and the anticipation for Ole Miss football this year is as high as I've ever seen it in this state, and it should be. I mean, when you go to the Peach Bowl and you make, Penn State look lethargic and slow, you win 11 ball games, you bring back a ton of guys, you recruit well. This team is really, really good. And look, when you look at the schedule that Ole Miss has, I mean, look, you're not going to sleepwalk, but if there ever was that, they should sleepwalk to 6-0 before they're ever tested this year.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I mean, Memphis is Ole Miss's backyard. And there's a lot of kids now going to Mississippi State too, but especially with Ole Miss. And in the past, their fans, you know what I'm talking about. I think Brendan would agree, and everybody listening. Some people are afraid of success because it can become a burden. Because once you win, you're expected to do that all the time. That means you got to put the work in. The culture that's there, it's a combination of high school and the portal. And Ole Miss's model is something that a lot of teams should be following, shouldn't they?
No, I think so. Absolutely. I mean, you just look at the way the SEC is put together, and look, this is going to be a fascinating year in football. Of course, we still got basketball to chalk through, baseball to chalk through, but no, I 100% agree. Absolutely, they should.
All right, let's switch gears over to Mississippi State again. We got a lot of listeners. We're forming, SEC Sidelines Sports Network and SECU. So we want you being a part of it because you put in the time, you work like a dozen rented mules in one body, but you Brendan, wait until you see the matrix and all the stuff that he puts. He seriously is a civil engineer, graduate of Mississippi State, and really, really smart. You can put this in the vernacular, okay? But I want to ask you about Mississippi State baseball. That's the program when I was in college in the 80s that put college baseball on the map. And we know Skip Bertman came in the 90s, won 5 national championships. But what's going on at the Dudy Noble Stadium, which is the standard of college baseball stadiums, and the fan base is like no other. But the only thing close to them is LSU or Ole Miss. That's how good it is down here.
No, it's fantastic, and it really is. And look, right now, there's a lot of pressure on this program. We know that. I mean, you win a national championship, and then Chris Lemonis has the 2 years that they had the past 2 years. Couldn't pitch it, couldn't hit it. This year, I mean, it's still early. They go, get 2 out of 3 from Air Force. They did, drop one to Austin P last night. They need to come back and win one tonight. They've got hitters on the team. As David Murray with genespage.com told me the other day, he said, hey, look, they're hitting the baseball, but they're also striking it out. They're pitching it a little better. They've just got to pull this thing together and not, I don't know this per se, but you would think there's a lot of, a lot of anticipation. Maybe he was playing some, little tight baseball. Chris Lemonis spoke of this last night after the game. Hey, look, we've got to just, let loose and play baseball. The guys know what's at stake. The coaches know what's at stake. They've got talent on this team. This is a non-conference schedule where they need to pick up momentum and win, 7, 8, 9, 10 wins in a row before they hit that conference slate. But the conference slate will be here before you know it. So we'll figure this team out pretty quickly. And, for Chris Lemonis' sake, I hope they do figure it out.
Yeah. And you look around, there's nowhere to hide. We say that about football. We say it about basketball, and we damn sure say it about baseball. That's what the last 2 years, 21, 22, and then last year, LSU. I mean, it's a triangle. It's the Magnolia State, and it's losing. There's so much talent in those states. Okay. Now let's switch to basketball. Mississippi State basketball, the Hump. I think it's one of the toughest places to play. It's old, it's cavernous, and it's really loud from an engineering and architectural standpoint. That metal, there's a lot of metal in there. It's loud. Are they going to do a retrofit on that? Scrap it, do something new? What's on the board in the facilities war? Because we got our architect who's our facilities war expert, Jan Cowart from down in Fairhope. The last guy to play football at Auburn and be an architect. He started 4 years at Auburn. He's my dad's hero. My dad walked on for about 3 weeks and said, not for me. He goes, I'm good, but not that good. But let's get an update on facilities in Starkville, because they've got incredible facilities down there. They really do.
They do. They do. As far as the Hump is concerned, I have not seen, and I need to do some homework on this. I know there's been several versions of, quote, retrofits on the Hump. I have not seen a master plan of a new facility that could be out there. But right now, I mean, you look at the Humphrey Coliseum, I mean, it's dated, but they have done a good job of modifications. As far as other facilities are concerned, Dudy Noble Field obviously doesn't really need anything done to it. Davis Wade Stadium, they've done a great job there as well. So, one of the things about Zach Selman coming into this program is he kind of came into a situation where there's not a ton of work to be done as far as facilities. Now, obviously, there's always master plans and things of that nature. So the facilities at Mississippi State are as good as they've ever been. But there's always those master plans and those long range plans, because everybody else in the conference, like you said, it is a facilities, war game, so to speak, inside the conference. So you got to always be looking ahead.
Yeah. And let me ask you this, football wise. Okay. Jeff Lebby, he had some time with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. They know each other, but the rivalry between Lane Kiffin and the Pirate, Mike Leach, that was really cool. And that the Egg Bowl is must-watch TV. That is I don't know. I love Mississippi. I love the people down there. I spend a lot of time there. If you live in Memphis, you're part of it. I say that every day, but we really are. What's going on down there with the football team? Zach Arnett, we know it didn't work out. But what about the people he kept and the new people that he brought in coaching-wise? And how are they doing in terms of building relationships with this team? Because you got to re-recruit your guys basically every day.
Yeah, I mean, all things considering, I think everything's great for Jeff Lebby. I think he's done a great job. Obviously spring practice, they're going to have depth charts and rosters out here in the next week or two, getting ready for spring practice. But a lot of young guys, a lot of new faces. From the transfer portal, a lot of new guys will have helmets with tape on their helmet to figure out who they are coming up here in the spring. But by all accounts, I mean, Jeff Levy has done everything that he needs to do at this point, without coaching one football game in Starkville. Did a great job keeping the roster together. There was a little attrition there. Did a good job, I think, on the recruiting trail, really making inroads inside the state of Mississippi. If you talk to, at least early on, several coaches inside the state, high school wise, Jeff Levy gets rave reviews, and he knows what he's doing. It's just putting this team together, finding the right quarterback. Which we think obviously that's going to be the transfer quarterback from Baylor this year. Then there's some younger guys. There may be another, down the road next year, another transfer quarterback until some of these guys get some age on them. But by all accounts, he has done the right things. And, I think what you'll see out of Mississippi State this year, and we'll get to see it in the spring, is, back to playing fast football, back to, playing a kind of more wide open style offensively. So it should be a fun brand of football that he's bringing to Starkville.
All right, real quick, I know we got a few more minutes before you got to go, but talk a little about the transfer quarterback coming in, because I'm just a big Jeff Levy fan. I watched what he did at Ole Miss, and when they played in the Sugar Bowl against Baylor and Dave Aranda and Baylor, and they had Ron Roberts and the creeper defense. Well, Matt Corral went out early. That did not help. But Levy he's a powerful force as an OC. I've got to think his quarterback's going to benefit from that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think what you're looking at, what's interesting is if you look at Ole Miss and then you look at what Jeff Levy and Mississippi State are going to do, they're going to mirror each other a lot. You're talking about Blake Shapen, a guy who played 8 football games last year, 13 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, pretty high completion percentage kind of guy. He'll have a year left of football. Also, Shapen's a guy that can run it a little bit, 4 touchdowns on the ground. So, I think Levy, what he's going to want to do is what Kiffin does with his quarterbacks. And, this kind of chicken or the egg, right? I mean, you're going to want to stress the defense with a quarterback that can make plays with his feet, and then also put the ball in the air and then, move the clock, move the clock, move the chains, do all the stuff with high tempo type offense. So, it'll be interesting to see how quickly Shapen, gets into quote shape, no pun intended for Levy. But, right now, I mean, you go get a transfer quarterback. He's got to be the guy if you're going to get him.
Yeah. All right. Hey, great stuff as always. And you do a great show in the afternoon. Let people know how they can follow you, keep up with all your great work, and look forward to having you back on next week. All Things Mississippi with Jake Wimberly, proud native son of Rankin, Mississippi.
Yeah, hey, I appreciate
Correct,
that. 3 to 6, absolutely, 100% Rankin born. Got kids in school in Rankin. I mean, yes, Rankin born, absolutely, and Lord willing, that's probably where I'll end my days here. 3 to 6, though, Monday through Friday, the afternoon drive on ESPN Radio, thezone1059.com, podcast on Apple Podcasts, of course, Spotify, and all the platforms, YouTube, and more. And, of course, we're working on numbers. I've got some great interns in from Mississippi College this year. They're helping me kind of expedite the spreadsheets and the numbers, and we're going to have articles coming out here in the next 3 to 4 weeks, start doing team articles specific for college football. And we'll be, right now through the SEC, we're going through the ACC, and I'll have my 12-team playoff bracket projections and all that coming up very, very soon.
You mean we'll get to talk about college football in March too? Oh, man.
Can you believe that?
Hell yeah.
Only in the South, right, Ron?
Only in the South. Damn right. All right. Hey, take care. Look forward to your next visit. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Oh, you bet. Hey, getting a lot of comments on here from my friend. It's just one that you talk about a mentor, someone who helps me out beyond description. And Dudley, my friend Dave Cody, who was a longtime sportscaster at Channel 7 out in Austin, home of the Texas Longhorns, and living out in Washington now, semi-retired, but he's really running a big golf course out there right near the border with Canada. But talking about, has SEC released football schedule for 2024. Auburn does not play Texas next year, but Oklahoma does come to Auburn for their first road game as a member of the SEC. Texas baseball facilities, pretty sweet too. Indoor batting cages and training inside. Yeah, 37 trips to the College World Series makes that happen. Vern Lundquist is a friend and plans to retire as a broadcaster after this year's Masters. He retired from college football on CBS. Yeah, and that sucks. It has not been the same since Vern left. But I got to say this, and all the great golfers, Dudley, that Vern Lundquist has seen in his broadcasting career, has he ever seen one better than Happy Gilmore? I'm just going to throw that one at you.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, certainly the biggest success story, coming out of nowhere You know.
Yeah. I mean, just who is this Horatio Alger? And you know all those liturgical comparisons. Hey, Dudley, by the way, folks over there, my friend Chris Aiken, Web-Footed Kennels, one of our sponsors. Love the guy. Lives in Jonesboro, hunts over in Grubbs, has Web-Footed Kennels. Was on the news when that flood was going on over there in Grubbs in the Newport area. I mean, the water from the Cache River was coming over the highway. He said these people were like in tears. I mean, they went through some rough cycle. And I tell you, I love the people over there. You know what? They didn't have a pity party. They didn't ask for help. They got on their knees and prayed and said, God help us. And they got through it. But I love the people that in our audience that we have. Like I say, we cover college sports in the South like kudzu and cotton. What's going on up in Fayetteville right now? And by the way, next time you go to Blue Jays, get the peanut butter pie. It weighs 10 pounds and 7 ounces. And the whipped cream is that thick at Blue Jays in Grubbs, Arkansas. You've got to go to this place.
If it doesn't literally weigh 10 pounds and 7 ounces, that's what I'll add.
That's right.
No, we've talked about it before. The water from the Cache River, was something I grew up with. It had to deal with it with farms. We had to deal with it with travel. But it was just one of the things you got used to. You didn't sit around and whine about it. You just waited for it to go back. And as you said, you prayed, and it eventually receded, I guess was the right word. I had it on one side of there at Grubbs, and then if you try to go to Batesville, I'm not sure why anybody would, because being Newport's rival, but you try to go to Batesville, you had water that way. So when it rained, we were stuck pretty much, but we were okay. We found something to do.
You toughed it out and you pulled for the Razorbacks.
And you were asking about what's happening in Fayetteville. Obviously they've played. And this statement last night by Coach Musselman kind of encapsulates the season. The best 80 minutes of basketball of the year. That was in a loss to Mississippi State and then a win at Texas A&M. If you're going 1-1 in your best 80 minutes of the year, that kind of tells you what the season's been like. And they're 13-13, now 4-9 in the SEC. Baseball obviously started the weekend 3-1, and the beautiful wife, Patron, and I will head out tomorrow to go down to Arlington, where they're playing 3 games this weekend against Oregon State, Oklahoma State, and Michigan. A couple of different opponents in there than they usually play. So looking forward to that. And then football, it's just people kind of waiting to see what happens during spring practice. And let's be honest, like we talked about this last week, there'll be another roster overhaul or whatever at every school. And so you'll probably see a few leave out of here, and you have at least 6 spots for them to get people back in here. They do feel good about that offensive line that they've recruited. Want to add just one more, I think, to kind of flip it. And we all know that was the area that was most focused on last year because your head coach is an offensive line guru.
Yeah. Well, the one thing, and I was looking at something on SEC Network this morning. By the way, love the comment from one of our viewers. The problem, tough to maintain current weight watching this show. But by the way, we talked yesterday about some smoked bacon that I had over at my daughter and son-in-law's over in Atlanta last week. We were on a 9-day trip, Knoxville, Charlotte, Atlanta, Benton's Smoky Mountain. Oh, wow, man. Hams and cured bacon. That stuff is unbelievable. And I talked to the owner, the founder's son, after the show yesterday, and love to get them on the team as a sponsor. You can get that bacon and the ham shipped anywhere. They also do a sausage. Obviously, you can't ship sausage, but I can't help it. I love good food, and that's
Rob Strangely, the highlight film of this year's Arkansas football team was titled "Smoked Bacon."
There you go. All right, I'm going to throw this one at you. It's and as a financial advisor, in addition to doing this show, 6 days a week, it's always darkest before dawn. People are making these apocalyptic predictions about the market's dead, the American dream is over. How many times have we heard that and we bounce back? I would be very careful, and I'm not saying this because you're on here. I just say it. I'd be very careful about writing off Arkansas because Bobby Petrino is the offensive coordinator. We all know what he can do. Am I crazy? Well, yeah, but am I insane? I don't know on that.
You have a better opportunity, I believe, since you brought him in here, even with all the drama that was here, on his way out the door. We talked about the Mia culpa. He did it at the Little Rock Touchdown Club, which I think is one of the big reasons he's here now. We know he can coach football. We know he has, or appears to have been humbled, a confident, humbled Bobby Petrino with some weapons. Is I think the number one thing that gives Razorback football fans some hope. 4-8 was not the year they wanted last year. I think a lot of people, and in this society we live where you cut bait and run quickly, I think most people, and even I at one point thought that there would be a new head coach here next year. They've given Coach Sam Pittman and his staff the opportunity to turn things around. He did that with the defense last year. Regardless of the 4-8 season, the defense got much better. The offense now has been turned over, and it's very clear. Coach Pittman says that all the time. The offense has been turned over to Bobby Petrino. So here you go. You now have the defense you want. You now have the offense you want. You've gone out and got some new players. We're going to have another one of those 35 to 40 different players here. So what happened last year may not have any doggone thing to do with next year. And that's the way college football is now.
Yeah, I mean, Jason Caldwell, Auburn Undercover, always says, I've never seen it where you can go so quickly from the bottom to the top and the top to the bottom. That's the scary part, top to bottom. You can fall that quickly. So, yeah, I think it's going to be fun to watch. Razorback athletic program. Football struggled here, obviously, last season. Basketball, preseason, was the top 4 SEC team, not having a great year. Baseball, with Dave Van Horn, they're a constant. They're always going to be in the mix for the College World Series, the Omahaws. Let's talk real quick about the Razor's Edge NIL Collective. Again, we got a lot of viewers and listeners. We're building this SEC Sidelines Sports Network, also SECU, and we're going to be doing a lot of stuff. You're part of this network. We have you on here. We want to help you brand as much as possible your brand, hogville.net. You got nearly 40 years experience as a writer. Kind of talk about that Razorback drive. They've got, I just know a lot of Hog fans. I know a bunch of them. And again, there's a lot more money than people realize, but the number one radio station that wealthy people are tuned into is WIIFM. What's in it for me? Same thing if you're going to give to NIL, okay? What do I get in return for this? Who's running the Razor's Edge program that the Hog fan base can rally around?
See, that's the deal right there. The 4-8 football season and the fact that you have competent people running this, but they're not a name person. I realize how ridiculous this sounds to some fans, but if you had somebody like Houston Nutt, who is moving back up here, obviously, or has moved back up here, working on it. If you had a face like that running the Razor's Edge, and you had successful football program, I would tell you that 17 of the 19 sports that they sponsor here have had great success, are in great shape. But football, didn't last year, and I love to talk sometimes with fans. You would have thought that this football program had gone 4-8, 3-7, 2-9, 1-10, 1-11, whatever.
Yeah.
Instead of 1 year of down, and yes, they didn't, have a fantastic year before, but it's not as if that thing had bottomed out until this year. And you and I have talked about this, in the years I've been on the show now.
Yeah.
You win the close ones, you're going to have a good year, you're going to go bow. You don't, and you. Let me say, if you win the close ones, you're going to get a 6-year contract and an extension, and a raise and all that. You lose them, and everybody's going to sit around and say, "Hey, we need to get somebody new." It has not been the bottom dwelling seller hogs that everybody, or not everybody, a lot of people seem to think it is just because they have one truly bad year.
I agree with that. And I think fan bases, they panic after games. I mean, you look, hey, what's the first time all season we've had a unanimous number one in the college basketball rankings? It was UConn when Monday's poll came out. Well, I turned on the TV last night, and they had to go to Omaha and play Creighton, and they got curb stomped. I mean, it looked like
a W. Close. I mean, it wasn't even close. And I give UConn credit for fighting back, cutting it within 10 at one point, but they were never going to win that game. Creighton has a beautiful arena, has a great fan base. It is the thing there, and you were going to have to go in and play perfect to do that, to win the game, and it didn't.
And I was thinking about this morning, and that was the brand of basketball that they play in the Big East. The basketball IQ, I'm talking about just the fundamentals, the guard play. It's exceptional. You've got Hurley as the coach at UConn, and they were breaking it down. You got to love Bill Raftery when he's doing the game. Dudley Dawson, the point guard, are going to shoot onions. I mean, God, I love that. There's something about those guys. And what are they all pointing toward? You got to wait till we get to the Garden, Madison Square Garden. That's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, Dudley, you've been
if Rafferty had ever done one of my basketball games, he clearly would have said, he would have called me the point guard because that's what I was. He'd say, he'd come down, he's looking for either that 6'8" guy, that 6'7" guy, or that 6'7" guy. One that'll play in the NBA, one that'll play in the NFL, one that will go on to play in college. He knows his role. He will get fouled in the fourth quarter and get his 10 points then off of free throws, but he knows his role.
You had teammate, one played in the NBA, one in the NFL, and one in college. Wow.
Charles Valentine was drafted in the NBA, played in the summer league and played some exhibition games. Theo Young was our power forward. He went on to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, played here at Arkansas, went on to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Eric Brandon was the tallest of the three. He went on to play at St. Louis. So it's not crazy that I owned the assist record back in the day. I knew my role. Coach the late Bill Ozier, Coach Bill Ozier, he clearly defined what my role was. I accepted it, and then they would be down there in the fourth quarter saying they're open when we were up 15-20. And I see you, but we're up, and I'm about to get fouled and get my 10 points.
There you go. Well, you're the distributor. Hey, we're talking with Dudley Dawson, hogville.net, on the ECS House Industries. Check them out on the web, houseindustriesinc.com. Wastewater management, aquaculture, agriculture. They make the better roller, the better chopper, the pulverizer. They also make the aerators for the catfish farms. You love a good catfish sandwich, catfish fingers, made right here in the heart of the Delta, right between Wynn and Jonesboro in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, in a 99,000 square foot warehouse. Chad House, love the guy. He is a Razorback, Rhodes College grad, Sigma Nu, great American. You ask anybody that works for him, you can't find a better boss. His favorite day of the year is Christmas Eve or the day or two before, when he gets to write bonus checks to his employees. I love a boss like that. Proud to have him, blessed to have him as a sponsor here, this Razorback Report with Dudley Dawson. Dudley, you think about of the sports at Arkansas and gymnastics, you name it. These crowds of these kids, they call them Swifties. They go to a Taylor Swift concert or whatever. But
really, I haven't heard that any this year during football season.
I hadn't either. Was there any news about that? My wife predicts that relationship will kind of fizzle out because they're never going to have time to see each other. But it's good for the NFL, and I'm sure there were some checks written. I'm just going to guess on that one. But I got to ask you, the gymnastics, all these sports that they have. Yeah, there he is. He was so liquored up at the parade in Kansas City that he could not stand. Okay. I don't know. It's
I have no idea. I have no idea what that's like, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And the bottom line is Vince Ferrara is on with us now from the Sports Animal over in Knoxville. Jump into this conversation. And Dudley, I got to tell you, these crowds for all these, they call them non-revenue sports. They don't let you into a gymnastics meet for free. I mean, they scalp tickets, $125, $150 a piece. And you know, I don't understand it, but it's very popular. Okay. So anyway, jump in here, Vince Ferrara. We're talking, you know, what's going on in the SEC and all these sports right now. Tennessee basketball is hot.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for segueing to that, because I did not have Taylor Swift on my bingo card, a first topic of conversation that we'd get to the table and discuss today. So, or relationship advice. I'm no good at any of that, bringing any analysis on that to the table either. But Tennessee got a win over Missouri last night by 5 points. And Missouri, they punched Tennessee in the mouth early, although it was more physically than on the scoreboard. I got done calling Tennessee baseball last night. They had their home opener in their renovated stadium, and I looked at the stat broadcast as the basketball game was just starting, and it said 14:50 left to go in the first half. Tennessee 2, Missouri 1. It's like, wait, is the Wi-Fi down? Is it like is the score not frozen? I mean, what's the real score? And then it was like 7-5 with like 8 minutes to go in the half. It's just ridiculous. The teams combined to start 1 of 17 from the floor shooting. And then Missouri had a 3-point lead at the half, 29-26. But Rick Barnes got into them at the half. They started making their shots around the rim. Tobe Awaka, who is their backup big, he actually is the biggest credit for why they won that game, because while they were getting out-rebounded by the worst rebounding team in the league, and they weren't as dominant as you expect them to be against the winless team, Awaka was still battling on the boards. He was still getting to the free throw line and giving them some toughness. And then they went to a big lineup in the second half. Barnes has done it a little bit in small spurts, but he kept Adu, their 6'11", 7-footer, in with Awaka, and those two were tough to stop. And he went extended minutes with a bigger lineup, and then Dalton Knecht got going. And you know, guys, you watched him, when he gets hot, look out. And so Tennessee was down by as much as 7 early in the second half, but then they went on a 32-12 run over 11 minutes of time in that game, and then separated. So it wasn't a great look to play close with Missouri, but they really bounced back and got the W in the second half because of Awaka and Knecht.
Well, I will tell you that, I watched the game, and Dalton couldn't hit anything there at first. Obviously, got going in the second half a little bit. I do think that is more of an impressive win than many they have had where they've blown out somebody, because they haven't had a ton of adversity. And when you have to deal with adversity, especially, I mean, let's just be honest. You go and lose it at Missouri, that's embarrassment. That's humbling. And they started, I think, to stress a little bit there in the first half, and it wasn't going well. Coach gets them in there at halftime, as you said, makes some adjustments, and it may be Jimmy's and Joe's, but it also is a little bit X's and O's. And I think he made some great adjustments. And I was more impressed with that win than some I have where they've just blown out people, because that shows the mentality more than it does, just what you can do in a court.
And Dudley and Rob, Tennessee in the past loses that game in years past. They just have not been good enough to sustain tough circumstances for them. In Missouri, just like A&M, really motivated to play Tennessee. They moved up to the top 5 in the rankings, so they're getting teams really motivated to play. Sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. And Tennessee in the past, without having a dynamic player like Knecht, helped them get on a run, or the ability to go inside. They made it to the Sweet 16 last year. They didn't have any low post scoring to speak of, unless they were driving into the paint, or they also wouldn't get to on the fast break much at all last year, and they made it to the Sweet 16. So they've got some different elements of this year's team that obviously gives them a chance to succeed in the postseason, but keeps them from losing these regular season games like that maybe they would have in years past.
Well, throw something at you for either one of you to answer. Watching that Creighton beatdown of UConn last night out in Omaha, and Dudley's right. That's the thing in Omaha. That or saying you ran into Warren Buffett out in public somewhere. But it's the brand of basketball they play in the Big East, that East Coast basketball, you've always got the great guard. Look at Zakai Ziegler. He's from, the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, whatever. Yeah. He ain't from the Upper West Side. He's a tough kid. He's not some candy ass. He's tough. You got to love a guy like that. And, I'll tell you a cool story. A dentist in our building, he passed away, the late Dr. Ed Weiner. He was Tennessee's representative for the SEC basketball tournament for the Hall of Fame about, 7 or 8 years ago. I used to see him every day at lunch. He would bring his whole practice downstairs and eat lunch. And he would say, Rob, let me tell you something about my boy, Bruce Pearl. He's going to be something at Auburn. Don't give up on him. He's going to be special. Well, he said when Tennessee was recruiting Ernie Grunfeld, Ray Mears was the coach. And Ernie Grunfeld was parents were from Romania. And he got a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, said, hey, we got this kid from New York we're trying to recruit. And his name is Ernie Grunfeld. You speak any Romanian? And I think he spoke some Yiddish to him or something like that, got him to come down for the visit. That's the Ernie and Bernie show. That's how that happened. Pretty cool story. But that toughness that you get in the East Coast. Remember Dean Smith used to make a living off of guys like Kenny Smith out of Queens and the Bronx? Mm-hmm. They play a different kind of basketball. My question is there an SEC team that can match up well with UConn or Creighton that you've seen this year?
Well, I think UConn is the team you most want to avoid when the brackets come out. Now, I know they had their butts handed to them last night, but so has everybody else. Anyone else that you're considering Purdue, everybody else has had that happen to them. So it's not like we thought UConn was this unbeatable team, the old UNLV teams of the past. They just look like the most consistent, complete team. They do bring typically a toughness. I'd say probably Tennessee from a toughness standpoint. I also wonder about Auburn because Auburn is a tough-minded team, and then you have the great strategy of Bruce Pearl. You were talking about him, and he is always really good at game planning, game to game, especially teams that haven't seen him before. So Alabama with their scoring potential, possibly, but not from a physical standpoint, but they may get them in the wrong kind of game. So those would be 3 candidates I would think of.
And I would toss out Florida. Florida has, I think, a tremendous amount of talent. They've had some games where they've been fantastic this year, some where, they haven't shown up and played to their capability. But if you look at that roster, you look at the diversity on it, the perimeter players, the inside players, I think they've got enough talent and enough numbers and enough length to go at a UConn. And as Vince was saying, UConn is not a dominant team, but they're going to play most teams in the country and would beat them 8 out of 10. But that's the great thing about the NCAA tournament. It doesn't matter really what you've done leading up to it. It's one game. Somebody shoots well, you're out. Just ask Purdue.
Yeah. Well, and as Franz Beard of GatorBetMedia.com calls them, per don't. And you looked at Eddie, the big guy, 8'3", 61% percentage from the field. Well, that's because he has a lot of dunks. I mean, he plays under the basket. He's a giant of a man. He's been there for 7 years, I think. And the NBA hadn't grabbed him yet. But
they're about to. He's going to make a great backup center for the Boston Celtics next year.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I would think he would be, but worried Pearl may get monster offer from Louisville or elsewhere after this season. Let me just say this for the record: nobody's going to match Auburn's money in terms of keeping a coach. I mean, when you've got a strong college of engineering, you've got a lot of really wealthy. You got a great medical school, law school. That's one thing. It's the college of engineering at most every school where their biggest donors come from. That's just the way it works. But Dudley, you're right about Florida, and Brendan knows it. They've been trending. They won 7 straight SEC games. Mm-hmm. All right, and bounce it back and forth here, and I'm going to throw it out there. The SEC, it's been 2019 since we last had a Final Four team. Who this year, give me a couple of teams you think, 2 or 3, that you think will make that deep, deep run, Elite 8 or better? Or do we have any y'all think?
Well,
I'll go with Tennessee, Alabama, and Auburn. I think again, if you're saying all the way to the Final Four, I tossed out Florida as a team that can win a game, but those three are at the top of the standings for a reason. The others, when you lose games at home, as Kentucky has done, it really, even though I have friends who are Kentucky fans and that, when you lose at home like that, it takes some shine off of some luster off of things. And they may get going. They have great talent. But I just think those are the three most consistent teams and have the best chance to get there.
Yeah, I would agree with those three. A lot of it depends on seedings, matchups that you get. Typically it's not all one seeds. So I don't know that there's going to be an SEC team on the one line, but 2, 3, and 4, if you have teams playing their best basketball at that time and have good matchups and the bracket plays out for them, then yeah, those are the kind of teams that you project into the Final Four outside of the one line in those 2, 3, and 4 seeds. So they're the best candidates. Kentucky is healthier now, so again, that road win at Auburn opened some eyes. You mentioned Florida, how well they're playing right now. I know Jimmy Dykes is big on Florida and thinks they have a deep run potential also. So those would be a couple on the outside, but I would start with Tennessee, Alabama, and Auburn.
And I'm not off the South Carolina bandwagon. I've been on it all year, but they're wobbling a little bit. So I need to see how they do down the stretch here.
I have a hard time with them for the postseason. I have some questions about Alabama too. Alabama is to me, they're so offensive centric. And yes, that is a recipe to winning. The national champions are typically in the top part of the offensive efficiency numbers. But to me, they are so volatile, and they play a little bit better defense than they did last year. But they still worry me a little bit in them being so dependent on that 3-ball falling for them. And then South Carolina in an offensive tournament, I don't know that they have the playmaking they create, the creators. They're not going to always be able to boss the game in terms of tempo. Look at Florida Atlantic last year with their run to the Final Four. They had the ability to be able to play, and they did. They had low-scoring games, Tennessee, and they had high-scoring games. They were able to adjust to any tempo, any situation. I'm not sure that South Carolina has that, so I would be my concern for them in a tournament setting for a deep run.
The SEC tournament is going to be fun, I think. There's going to be a lot of teams playing for position, and there's not a game. I mean, even with Vanderbilt, Missouri, I think they've proven that they can play teams close, and you better come ready to play from Wednesday on.
Well, the one thing, how much the teams that are at the top 4, and I know they're not going to say this publicly, but let's be completely transparent. I know I've heard it said that let's go to the tournament. Let's not embarrass ourselves, but we're focusing on the NCAA tournament. I think it's very tricky. And I heard a great term from a friend of mine yesterday, Jason Perry, said something about you're tripping over $1 to save a penny. You go to that SEC tournament, you wear yourself out for 4 or 5 days, then you got to turn around, play that NCAA tournament. Justin, I mean, I'd say this to Dudley or Vince or Brendan, whoever. Do you see where I'm going with that? I mean, how the top teams, how much – because Kentucky, believe it or not, they won 49 regular season SEC titles. They won, 35, 38 tournament titles? They could do it again this year. I think they can.
Here's the number one thing I think about the tournament. You do not want to be you want to win enough that you're not a 3 seed coming out of the end of the NCAA tournament. We watch 14 seeds all the time. It's always a great senior or experienced team. We see a lot of those going down. Those top 4 teams will be playing not to be a 3rd seed, trying to be 1 and 2. Maybe that's unrealistic. We'll see as it plays itself out down the season.
Yeah.
But there's something to play for down there. But you are right. If you're going to be, one of these 7, 8, 9 seeds, you're always going to try to win the basketball game, but you're not going to wear yourself out.
Yeah. Yeah. Vince, I mean, what Dudley just said, I agree. When you come out of that tournament on Sunday, and then as soon as the tournament's over, that selection committee, they're coming out Sunday night with the seedings. That's where you got to really be careful if you have a bad tournament. I agree, because if you're what's the worst seed that you could get? Let's, in your case, let's be myopically focused. Tennessee, what's the worst case scenario seed wise for them if they say lose after the second round of the SEC tournament?
Well, I think it depends on the difficult stretch they have, and they have after Texas A&M. It's a quad 2 game coming up Saturday night at home. They have 4 straight quad 1 games in Auburn at home, then at Alabama, at South Carolina, at Kentucky at home. So if that doesn't go well, and I don't know that anyone has a tougher final 4 games of the season than Tennessee, then that and an early exit in the SEC tournament, sure, they can fall back to the 3 line. Joe Lunardi said last night, going into last night's action, that Tennessee Arkansas really wasn't going to move the needle if Tennessee won, because there was such a gap between the 1 seeds and everybody else, which was topped by Tennessee at number 5 in his rankings. And so he said that Tennessee's not going to move up anytime soon. So if your ceiling is a 2 seed, that says to me that you have the ability to slide back to a 3. Now, that could change once you start playing tougher competition with those 1 seeds if you win those games. But yeah, I wouldn't rule out, if it doesn't go well for them, them slipping back to a 3. That would be their floor, in my opinion.
All right. One other one here. We hadn't gotten into this. I talked with Jake Wimberly in the first segment, but I want to throw it to both of y'all. College Football Playoff Committee came out yesterday, that 12-team format. We've known that was coming. Top 4 teams are going to get a bye. Highest ranked top 5 conference champions, and then everybody else. It was, according to what Bill Hancock told us back in July, we talked to him up at Media Days, it was going to be the 6 highest ranked conference champions. Now it's 5. Jake indicated that Oregon State and Washington State, were trying to make that happen, but they got it down to 5. So 7 at-large teams. Do y'all like that format, Dudley?
Yes, and I mean, there's not a real 6th. I mean, you can't really be.
There's not.
That's why they adjusted. I mean, that thing imploded. And aren't they playing Mountain West teams? Not that I'm degrading the Mountain West, but
yeah, they are.
It just makes sense after what happened with all that. So yeah, I'm for that. I'm always for buys if you win through the regular season. I do think the regular season should mean something. And if you're the top 4, you used to just start playing. But now that you've expanded it to 12 and a money grab and a ratings grab, you've got to still allow the teams that win and prosper, you've got to allow them to heal up from injuries and all that. I am fairly interested. I haven't seen, I guess, delved in it too much, the exact dates that they'll start playing. How quickly are they going to start doing that after the regular season's up with? Because you can't wait till just January now.
Yeah.
I think those came out, I don't recall. I want to say mid-December, which is another thing that really bothers coaches. I think Josh Heupel was talking about it going into the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl and the calendar next year. It was already chaotic this year, but now if you're preparing for a college football playoff that's going to start potentially on your home field, and there's the early signing period right at about the same time. I mean, how are we doing this? So I think it's sometime there in mid-December, which is just wild unless they do something with that early signing period.
I got to tell you, we had a writer who wrote a column around here after Arkansas didn't make a bowl, and had a bad season. And the genesis of the column, or the emphasis of the column, was that Arkansas would benefit from not going to a bowl because they'd have more time to recruit. I didn't buy that. Yeah. I think you recruit if you win, and you figure it out. But everybody's busy in December anyway, the way it is now. not only are you having to bring kids on campus trying to add them, you're having to recruit your own kids. And in the case of KJ Jefferson, who I loved while he was here, he never announced he was leaving because he had to wait to get a check when the bowl started. You know, that was written into the NIL deal.
Yep.
So, you know, it's always better to make a bowl.
Well, with that kind of logic, that it's better to not be in a bowl, you have more time to recruit. Why isn't Vanderbilt a superpower? I mean, come on, you know. I think
the dude's a great writer. You know, he's done a lot of good stuff. But I was reading like, nah, did I have some edibles or something here? You know, so.
Well, if there's one thing when craziness is happening, and it happens every day, and Brendan doing this show is a quarterback. I mean, he's an RPO. There's about 15 or 20 people in the whole country that understand streaming. He does. Having him as my executive producer is like having Chris Kyle in the deer stand with you. Pretty damn good odds.
I agree. I agree with the problem saying he was a great addition. You know, I think it makes me look better.
I can't say.
And by the way, the problem, I'm at the Appalachian State this weekend. This week, not at Pebble Beach. I tried to pull it around once in a while.
Yeah, and Vince looks like he's in Palm Springs. I'm looking for the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and Telly Savalas to come in there. Who loves you, baby? Tahoe, Reno, Vegas.
Don't forget about Joey Bishop.
Yeah, Joey Bishop. But also, I want Vince. Hey, Brendan, we talked about this in the first part of the show. Mama Ferrara's. That has the ring of a great Italian restaurant. And by the way, I got a text, Vince, from my son, Wilson. I have 2 boys, 2 girls. Saturday morning, and I'm like, what is this? It was a video of a train going through the countryside and mountains and all. I'm like, where is this? He goes, Italy. I go, who sent this to you? He goes, I'm in Italy. I forgot my son, he flew out of Charlotte to Italy for the week with his friend William Varnado to go visit Italy. They're in Firenze, Florence. And his texts are just unbelievable. I've been to Italy several times. He's like, oh, my God, this is unbelievable. My dad being an architect and an artist, you know, he spent 8 weeks on his honeymoon in all over Europe, went to 31 countries, spent most of the time in Italy. The architecture, if you don't love Italians and Cajuns, there's something wrong with you. They love life. My dad says, boy, nobody loves life more than the Italians. They're the greatest, then the Lebanese. But there's nothing. You've been to Italy, Vince. 1 out of 6 Americans, by the way, is Italian. I mean, that's all I got to say. But Mama Ferrara's, Brendan and Dudley and I, Stromboli, calzone.
To hear while we're in this discussion.
Yeah, we're getting hungry. Brendan and I want to know when we can meet with you. SEC basketball tournament. By the way, who here on this show is going to be in Nashville? We're going to go up there and do some shows at the SEC tournament down on Broadway. But are either of y'all going to be in Nashville?
I will be covering baseball.
Yes,
I think so. Hasn't been 100% confirmed. You know, sometimes with radio needs sponsors and all that kind of fun stuff. So they haven't put the stamp of approval 100% on it. But I've been for many years in a row. I expect to cover them in the postseason as well. So there and if you do something out there.
Oh, absolutely. Mitch Davis is going to be up there, the MitchDavisShow.com. He's one of our young writers, sports guys, 27 years old. It's 5 years now. He's about to hit his 500th college football, basketball, or baseball game in the last 5 years. I mean, wow. And he's newly married. What do you tell a guy like that?
I can guarantee you one thing. If my grandson, Arthur D. Dawson, who I've nicknamed the A-Train, not sure how his parents feel about that, but if he was in Nashville instead of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, as he was, my butt would be there. And I'd be there for a couple weeks for the SEC tournament, but he's in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So.
Well, you know what's in Lancaster, PA? That's Amish country. You ever saw the movie Kingpin? Maybe the greatest bowling movie of all time. Ishmael Borg lives in Lancaster. Ishmael Borg, and brother Hezekiah. Yeah, you have?
Oh yeah, my sister lives up in West Reading, so I go up there and we cruise.
Well, we're gonna fly. We're gonna fly up there, take a card, and then get a horse, and you know we'll be good.
Yeah. Dude, they won't let you have the horses. You can't play that game. There's very strict rules. You got to be like, you know, you can have a cell phone. See, I know about all this Amish stuff. So if you want to break it down, I saw all the reality shows.
All I know is on Law and Order, the youngsters before they turn 18,
16,
or 16, they got to come to the big city of New York, and they always got in trouble on Law and Order.
Yeah, it's called Rumspig. Rumspig. You get to go out and discover and explore the world and decide if you want to continue to be a part of the community. But by the way, it'd be a tough. But hey,
in Newport we called it a Saturday.
Yeah, I admire their dedication to their craft. We're about out of time, but I got to tell you, both of y'all together, and we had Jake Wimberly on in the first segment. I love these roundtable discussions because there's so much synergy. You know, SEC Sideline Sports Network and SECU, that's what we're all about, is covering this whole conference. Real quick, before we go, I got to ask both of y'all this question. Is the SEC brand stronger now than the Big Ten brand, even though they have, I think, 18 teams and 75% of the TV sets in America live in the geographical footprint of what is the Big Ten?
Here's what I'd tell you, and Vince, you can agree with me or not, but I think that there was a clear delineation between the SEC being better than the Big Ten before the last year. And I'm not talking about on the field. I'm talking about off the field. The Big Ten made a big splash with their, TV deals and all that. They added some West Coast teams. So I think it's pretty even right now, and they bounce back and forth. I believe I'm right. In 2 years, there's going to be another big TV deal or whatever like that. So as much as I cover SEC, as much as I'd rather watch an SEC football game, I have to be objective and say it's very close one way or the other right now.
I think the perception now has evened out more so, to your point, Dudley. But for a long time, and rightfully so, it has been the SEC that's been thought of as the best in virtually every sport. And I think that's where there's some strength still for the SEC to offset what's happened recently in football, where that gap has closed for the Big Ten and more teams in contention for the playoff. And the TV contract is a part of the deal. Now their brands are national, all that kind of fun stuff. So I do think it is evened out. The totality, I'd maybe still give the SEC a little edge in perception, but it's definitely very close. And look, another reason why those two are getting together, discussing the finances and everything going on in college athletics, because they have a different bar and goals with them versus everybody else. Rob, real quick, can I say something on the college football playoff?
Absolutely.
Time? Yeah. That on that format, they obviously adjusted for the Big 12 for the Pac-12 disintegrating. And now the interesting part of that, first of all, I do like the format, but I think that it should be wide open in terms of the seeding of the college football playoff should determine who get your buys. I know that adds to the controversy, whereas there's not as much controversy if you determine it by conference champions. But what if a conference is really down? There's only really four. There's only a Power Four, and then the fifth one will go to a group of five. What if somebody like the ACC, you got an 8-win team, so they get a bye versus someone that maybe has no losses or one loss that's on the outside looking in and having to play the first round? So that scenario is probably going to come up at some point. The other thing is Notre Dame. Their first time they put it out there, since Notre Dame wasn't in a conference, they would never get a first round bye. The highest they could go is fifth. They didn't specify Notre Dame in their release yesterday, but I imagine it's the same thing. Notre Dame cannot get an automatic, and they were good with that because they can be as high as 5 and always host in the first round. So that's another interesting aspect. If you opened it up, then Notre Dame could get in, but that way, the way it's currently set up, Notre Dame is on the outside in terms of the first four getting a bye.
And I want to throw something in before we get out of here. Obviously, I'm going to Arlington this weekend to cover baseball. I love baseball, but here's the most interesting thing I'm going to get to do this weekend. Arkansas plays Oregon State, plays Oklahoma State, and plays Michigan. I'm looking forward to having a cold one and talking to some of their fans because they have a lot of stories to tell about the last year.
Yeah, they do. In Oregon State, 3 national championships out there in Corvallis, and you're going to have a blast down there. And I think about my friend TK, Jeff Tickenen, sitting at his house right now, down in Longboat Key, Florida. Vince, you know where that is, down in on the Gulf Coast. They call the Atlantic the Gold Coast. No way. The Gulf Coast. You know, you can always tell when a Yankees down there at L.A., Lower Alabama, they call it the ocean. No, it's the Gulf. And you know what, Vince? The seafood. I love food. I do. That's why I exercise all the time. But both of y'all, thank you a million times over for sharing your time with us, our listeners and our viewers and everybody. All of our sponsors. Brendan, cannot thank you enough. Unbelievable job that you do. And didn't Vince like eating in Tampa area? Yes.
Yes.
You there?
It's Dudley.
Yeah. Hey, Dudley, tell us how everyone can find you, and we'll say goodnight to you. Oh, and I have something special for you when you're done.
All right. Well, the hogville.net logo you get up there, that's our website that we cover all Arkansas sports. We'll have plenty going on this week. Baseball. Otis will be covered, football recruiting, football in general, softball, just tons of things. Really enjoy working there. And Fearless Friday is our high school site. I'm kind of taking a step back right now on that. We'll get back to that once we get through some of these tournaments and stuff. But hogville.net, Fearless Friday, and as I always say on my X, and I'm getting used to saying X instead of Twitter.
Yeah. Yes.
You can find plenty of Cardinals, Cowboys, Celtics. That's all getting bumped to the wayside because of Arthur D, the A-Train Dawson, my grandson.
I love it.
I
love it.
There's nothing really like FaceTiming with a baby who can't talk, but he can hear you.
Oh yeah, he can hear you. Vince, let them know how they can follow you.
Yeah, all the socials, Vince Sports, VINCE Sports. It includes X, it includes Instagram, Facebook. I personally like Instagram so much better because people are sharing more positive things. It's photos. You can still get some information. A lot of dog posts, which is so much better than human posts, I think, these days.
Yeah.
So that and food, dogs and food, I'm in, and that's
my Instagram and your Instagram are not the same Instagram.
Yeah.
All right. Well, work to do for you, Brendan. Then obviously.
Yes. Well, I am also single, so it's different. But
hey, I love it. Go ahead, Vince.
Sorry, Rob. I was just going to say the website, 991thesportsanimal.com. There's podcasts there. Duval Network, Tennessee baseball called the home game last night, home opener. And so we'll call a lot of Tennessee baseball games this season. And then Vol Network pregame player interviews and TV show on Sunday mornings on the local ABC affiliate, The Sports Source. You can get that at sportsource.tv. And then, blogs and all that on their website as well. So a lot going on.
Hey, Dudley, I just wanted to tell you. Sorry, I just wanted to tell you that you should record some of these interviews that you do with these fans. Just even if you get their audio or your phone out and record it, because that stuff's great in the off season, as you're getting through the dog days. But I'll help you out with the edit on that thing. So just record it. So thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Have a good weekend.
Hey man, y'all do too. Awesome show. Love it. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Check them out on our website. We've got hyperlinks to everybody. Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, all of them, Rumble, Boxing Gym, the Vitamin Shop. Remember, a week from Friday, March 1st, we'll be broadcasting Sidelines, SEC Sports Network, live from the new Vitamin Shop in Oxford, Mississippi. Something's going on down there. Maybe it's because we're coming to town, but hotel rooms that are $148 this Thursday, next week are $450 and $950. I don't know. Maybe Led Zeppelin's getting together in Oxford. Something big's happening. But
I'll be there.
Awesome. Yeah, that's right. We're gonna have a blast. But thank y'all. We'll see you tomorrow. Appreciate you watching.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, The real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.